Hello, my name is Troy Wiley, and I'm the author of a book entitled The Next Copernican Revolution. So buckle up your seatbelts if you want to join me over the next 2 weeks as I go on a road trip through Eastern Europe. And basically, I just left Prague, Czech Republic. I was there for about a month, and now I've rented a car and hit the road. So I'm in Poland right now, just leaving Warsaw and heading up to a beach community called Sopot. So the idea is that I'm going to be uploading chapters of my book to medium.com, and to make it more accessible and free. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to upload these little videos of each chapter, just to sort of summarize what each chapter is about. So it's pretty appropriate that I'm starting the introduction of my book here in Poland, because this is where Nicholas Copernicus was born and raised. And you may recall that he was the dude back in the 1500s who said that the Earth is not the center of the universe, the sun was. And it caused quite a stir. So that's a major theme of my book, about paradigm change, and how I go back 200,000 years and I document these major paradigm shifts that we've had throughout history. And I make the case that once again we're on the verge of another major paradigm shift, mainly with our socioeconomic system. And another theme of my book is about freedom. So that's the title of my introduction, Freedom in the First Copernican Revolution. And so what I'm talking about there is about when we find the courage to come out and speak our truth, and we do that with others, then it can really help us flip the paradigm. And not only that, we find individual liberation as well as collective liberation for all of humanity. So, and nothing speaks to that better than this letter that I included in my introduction from Galileo to Johannes Kepler. So Copernicus died shortly after he published his book about the Earth not being the center of the universe. So he didn't bear much wrath. But other scientists that came along after him did, such as Galileo. And Galileo actually spent the last 13 years of his life under house arrest by the church. Ultimately, he did come out and speak his truth. But let me give you a little snippet here of his letter that speaks to all of it. He said, I would dare publish my thoughts if there were many like you, but since there are not, I shall forbear. So basically, he's expressing his fear of coming out and speaking his truth about the Earth not being the center of the universe. And this is in a time when, you could be burned at the stake for heresy for doing so. And indeed, he was put under house arrest for 13 years. But we know that ultimately he did come out and speak his truth. And so somehow, some way, he found his courage to do that. And I argue in the second part of that sentence when he talks about if there were many like you. So that speaks to how there's strength in numbers, right? And courage in numbers. If there's other people that we know of that we can unify with that think the same way, and they mean about radical truths, right? And enough of us come together and come out, find the courage, find our voice, and speak our truths about those issues, then we really can flip an entire paradigm. And that's where we are today. So the other aspect of this is it's sort of a spiritual teaching that I personally experienced in my own life, and that is for the sake of the whole. In other words, when we engage with something that's greater than ourselves, something as big as the entire world's problems, it's actually paradoxical, because you may think that that's just too overwhelming, that's too much for one person to deal with. But what I actually found was a sense of liberation, because what it did, it made me realize that my own issues, my own problems seem to fall away in significance, right? They became less important, almost even trivial when you compare them to the whole world's problems and all of humanity's problems. There's 2 billion people that are not getting their basic needs met. So it kind of puts things in perspective and pulls you out of your own sense of your own egoic self and self-focus, right? And along with that, it can give us a sense of empowerment, because when we realize that, here's the other thing too, so much of what's going on in the world right now we tend to internalize, or we blame ourselves for it. You know, we're struggling just to get by, and so maybe we blame ourselves for not working harder, or getting a better education, or whatever. We're being too lazy, whatever it is, right? Or we blame all of humanity for the problems, for being a scourge on this earth, right? Mother Earth and all the plants and animals would be better off without us, right? But we need to realize that it's a system problem, right? So, and things should not be this way. Life does not have to be this difficult, right? And the fact is, we live in a profoundly sick society, okay? And it's a system problem that we need to change. Once we realize that, then we stop blaming ourselves. We engage in something greater than ourselves. It pulls us out of ego. We start engaging with the world's problems. Then we get a renewed sense of optimism to know that we really can bring about the more beautiful world that our hearts know is possible. That knows that it's not supposed to be this way, right? So the cynicism sort of falls away, right? So that's sort of when we have this individual recognition and realization, then we can bring about not only personal and individual liberation, but a collective liberation for all of humanity. And I'll talk in future chapters about that's exactly what how we need to look at this as an emancipation movement, or to free us from the shackles of our own enslavement that we've been under for many, many millennia. And so that's the journey I hope to take you on in my book and in this road trip over the next couple weeks, if you'll join me. So thanks a lot for listening, and stay tuned. Thank you. Bye.